G'day legends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day and a fantastic start to your week. I've only got a few more videos before I'll be off for some time, so look, let's make them count. So today we do have a little bit to talk about. Of course, we need to look at the maps. We need to look at some geolocated footage and see where things are moving, but also importantly in that, what may be changing, because we have seen one route out of an area be cut off today. Even small advancements can be far more significant than a large advancement in another area. We need to then talk about Zelensky's victory plan and also fresh calls for negotiations. We need to look at where the future then lies, where there's manpower problems, some of how that manpower problems have been greatly exacerbated by people getting fake medical certificates to leave the country. And Zelensky has spoken about this today. Potentially there are thousands of people that have paid for medical, military deferment and have moved out and will refuse to come back. So we'll talk about all of that, as well as who is or who is not supporting that victory plan. But where we're going to start is we're going to start with looking at some drones and some strikes. And there's been a number of strikes overnight. So look, let's start here before we get into drones. Now, Russian pages are sharing some imagery like this today. Of course, like this is impossible to figure out where exactly it is, but said that they have had strikes on the port of Odessa overnight. That is about all the information that they have said. I would hazard a guess and say likely Iskanders, but could be the large wave of drones we saw fired towards Ukraine last night. Also, before we talk about the drones, Ukraine has had a number of attacks against Russia last night. Now, in Bryansk, there was attacks against what's said to be a microelectronics plant in Russia. Here, again, the amount of destruction, we have no idea. It is basically impossible to actually know what amount of destruction these strikes, whether into Ukraine or into Russia, actually deliver, rather than just the bang. What I say is, with all of this, whether it was those ammo depots hit, this hit, the truest form of evidence of how important these strikes are is give it a month and we'll see if there's effect on the front line or with weapons being used, and that gives us a good idea of how important those strikes were or were not. And say those ammo depots, yes, there was a massive bang, it was huge, it was a spectacular explosion. Have we seen a shortage of FABs or artillery on the front line? No, we definitely have not. But Ukraine's General Staff of the Armed Forces have also said that there was another attack at an aerodrome of the military plant of the Russian occupiers at the Lipetsk 2 military airport. We have seen this here before. The storage planes for the Su-34, Su-35, MiG-31. Again, saying there was chemicals for ammunition and air bombs produced. Yes, we have something has exploded here, but again, we really don't know. Give it a couple of days, we'll see what the damages was there. I had a look and Fighter Bomber hadn't spoken about this at all, so we will wait and see. But I mentioned before that there was large Russian Shahed Guran 2 drone attacks overnight. Now, there is some footage that I hadn't really seen before. This was from Poltava, and you can see the swarm of these drones then coming overhead. Said to be around 100, I've heard 80 to 100 flown, I should add, into Ukraine overnight. And we have seen, well, I haven't seen footage like this before of them coming in a swarm. And we have got some footage too. This is a Ukrainian Mi-24 helicopter, then shooting down one of these drones air to air, as well as you can see it going down. But there is some new additions to these drones. Now, this is said to be from a Shahed Guran 2 drone of a camera on board flying over Ukraine. Now, what this camera can do is directly link back intelligence surveillance. It is capturing as it goes, whether it's going from X to Z or Y to X, wherever it is flying. If this can just capture enough footage and relay it back to the Russians, they can gain a lot of information from this. Now, this is from a Russian page that has said about this. It is believed that this is the first published footage taken from a Guran 2 kamikaze UAV. Earlier, it was reported that some of these drones began to be equipped with 4G modems with Ukrainian SIM cards and rotating cameras. We had reported this Also, one thing this does leave out, what I got sent to me from a guy fighting in Ukraine, was it actually goes a step further than this. They have a system on board that Ukrainian phones will ping, and it is triangulating the positions of where those phones connect. So it's got this is like super rudimentary, but also like almost like a Wi-Fi sort of system, like a cell tower aboard it, and it's pinging the phones and it's collecting all of that. And it can, if it sees a group of 20 phones, it might go, oh, okay, that might be a trench. There might be multiple soldiers here. And these are actually collecting a lot of intel as they go in, pinging these further than just their cameras taking footage. But remember, none of that is confirmed. It's just what I've been told, but of someone very, very reliable. As is known, initially these drones used a satellite and inertial guidance system. Later, they were modernized and equipped with a jam-proof GLONASS antenna. GLONASS is like the Russian version of GPS, the Kometa M, which allowed to increase the accuracy of guidance. Now it seems the drone can be controlled by an operator. It is possible that the leading drone in a group of drones is equipped with such modification. You're not going to need it on every single one of them because they're all going to get basically the same footage. But that is an interesting update to those. But it does look like Ukraine is developing a new counter for these. That a drone capable of intercepting these Iranian-designed kamikazes, the Gran 2, the Shahed, whatever you want to call them, that these are deployed to chase down and intercept these drones that go 100 miles per hour at nearly 10,000 feet. That said, the claims at least already are very close to 100% of these drones already are intercepted, but I guess another way to intercept is good, but we still don't know exactly how many are or are not actually intercepted and what is just debris or what is actually then being hit. But the development will have an AI targeting system that will enable the pilot to lock onto enemy targets. I'm not sure how this is going to change in drone warfare in the future, where AI, machine learning, and AI assist. I was talking to a friend that works particularly in just drones for some companies, and he was saying it's not like AI going to the air, it's going to do its own thing. It's going to assist you. So it'll assist you in, you lock onto something and it will go into that, or it will, in its camera, look for shapes that are men or tanks or whatever, and may actually highlight those for you to go in. But we will see. Similar drones have been used to intercept Russian surveillance drones. We have seen the Orlan and Zalas being hit by FPV drones as well. But the Stinger with the first drone specifically designed to target the Iranian-designed Shahed drones launched by Russian forces. So we may see that enter the battlefield. We know drones wreak absolute havoc. Now, let's have a look at the maps before we go anywhere. Let me zoom out a couple of clicks. Here we have Ukraine, the center, the capital of Kyiv, the red areas, occupied since 22, the purple since 2014. Of course, the red Czech areas that Russia is occupying over the past 24 hours, the green and blue areas that where Russia has been at some point within Ukraine's borders, and the blue back into Russia area that Ukraine is occupying in Russia. Now, let's go to where we see the main red Czech change on this map around Hernik, heading in the direction of Kurakivka. Now, what we saw yesterday, of course, was this salient then close up in there. And then today we see this, as well as a grey zone shift just to the east of Seledov-Makilivka area. Let's turn this back on. I want to show you a couple of Syriac maps in here too. Now, this is some important updates. Let me shrink this. Shrinkage, George. So, come in. We have Seledov. Now, what we can see here, this is the train line. We know this train line, it was very, very important on the southern flank of Seledov, as well as then where this quarry mine was. Also, since yesterday, Russian army began the attack on the town of Seledova and from four flanks, leaving it in a semi-encirclement. The most notable advances are east, where Russian forces retook control of this mine and the dashes, reaching Makilivka and these streets. So we did see some grey zone shift here, but said that Russia has moved up basically to where the grey zone is saying here. He's saying that that's where Russian forces are. But that is not the first update we have of this area today. We get another one from Syriac in here showing this. So let's have a look. This is Seledov right here. See this blue dot? This is this Veshnevsky in here. The most interesting part is the crossing of this road, which is this road right here, and further right up to where this road, where the train line, intersects this Veshnevsky in here. Also, this is very important as it is cutting off areas out, leaving only other areas if that is true on the map. You can see the extent difference that this map, Syriac, is showing to this map, Deep State. What I will say, recently, Syriac has been far, far more reliable than Deep State. So what he is saying, this is about 4Ks. He's saying it's about 4 kilometers different up this train line here, essentially cutting off one of the last areas out of Seladov. But let's read what he says. Russian army increased pressure on Seladov by reaching the outskirts of here and establishing fire control over another supply route of Ukrainian army, which has only one last line left. In addition, Russian forces managed to seize a hill of great importance for monitoring Ukrainian movements in Gornik, where Russian troops managed to advance and take control of 1/5 of the locality as far as these streets. So where he's talking about is Gornik, Hernik, down in here, where we do see there was definitely some shifting on the map. Look at where Syriac is showing where Deep State. We can confirm there was definitely advancements in here. I do believe we will see fairly soon, because this is a natural barrier down the Volga here, this whole salient potentially close up. But what this can do, because then once it's closed up, there's going to be no man pads in here, can increase the safety of things like Su-34 or Kar-52s delivering munitions somewhere like Pokrovsk potentially. So again, like I say, definitely keep an eye on this. Now, we need to continue in this area. We have Hostoye Ovsrivsky Maximelinivkia, which I'm sure you are familiar with by now. Now, Noel reports he has updated his map to show control from Maximelinivkia down to this road along here. Again, difficult to see, but right down around, I guess, this paddock here, as well as see where this grey zone connects to the Volga. He is showing that this is getting filled in along here. So another Ukrainian source map there, but we do have a little bit of footage to show you. So Maximelinivkia, we see a Russian flag being flown here, and from the zoom out of the drone, we get an idea of where this is geolocated. So let's have a look at where this is geolocated. Now, this isn't the greatest thing to see ever, but you see where these two tree lines are. It's about halfway, so right in where my cursor is in here. No changes shown on this map, but you can see that Syriac has taken this into account on his today. So it was right just in like here. So Syriac showing more changes to the south. So Syriac is, Noel reports is, I guess, closer to Syriac, but actually showing more control. Noel was showing more control up to where the Oskil was in here, saying that has closed up. So again, this is why we use just multiple sources, because some show more, some show less, and it's difficult to get an idea. If you're using one source, I'm sorry, it's going to be bloody difficult. Now, let's have a little bit more of a look. We do have another red area just to the south of Pishani from Andrivka to Veshnevy in here. Now, I know a lot of these sound very similar, but a Russian advancement here, depending on where you rule from, let's go here to here, about a 2-kilometer advancement further going out towards the Oskil. Now, of course, it is a long way from here to here. We're talking 20 Ks, but any movement out to the west here is going to put more and more pressure on the forces that are currently in here. Now that this has been closed up out from this Pishani front, that any way into here is going to be a long trip around. And if Russia can just move out a couple of Ks, it makes all of this more and more difficult. So watch this front. This is an area where I think you need to be really sort of just on your toes a little bit to watch what is happening up in here while we may be distracted down around Pokrovsk area. Now let's come into Toretsk, New York front line. We do have a Noel reports map in here, and what he's showing is in Toretsk, just more control at also though into these blocks here. See this wooded area, there's more control through down on this road, well outside of even the grey zone on this map. This lines up more similarly, sort of, to Syriac. So I do believe there's a lot more control in this area than we are seeing. Now we need to move up into Kursk. There has been some changes in here. So we set back to yesterday. Sorry, this is yesterday. Oh no, now I can't do it. With all the donations, you think this will work. So we see yesterday, today. So you can see that there is a reduction in Ukrainian control in Kursk. Now, what we believe is there's a significant larger reduction than this. Now, this gives us a better idea if we pull up the ISW map. Now, let's zoom in so you can get a bit of a look. We have like Lubimovkia, so further into Malaya Lokona. I don't even know where this area is because the labeling isn't very great, but we can see like where this tree line sort of reservoir is here. It's right up in here. Kotonovo. So he's saying the Russian forces are well out into here. So this gives us a bit of an idea. There is significant advancement here. Now, what this map doesn't show us, what the ISW does show us, is how much ground the Russians have claimed or have been confirmed to take back. Sitting somewhere about confirmed, maybe 30%, claimed somewhat about 50%. So that is significant, especially because this was going to be used as as Zelensky's chess piece if there was any sort of negotiation for the exchange fund of land. We can see here those geolocated footage posted on October 20 indicates Ukrainian forces advanced along this highway. And I will show you this, and I'll show you where the geolocation is. What we can see in here is this is from Russian drones calling in artillery as well as direct drone strikes on Ukrainian positions. But what we're interested in is, well, where are these positions? So let's have a bit of a look. And you can see we have Martinovka and this road. So let's just zoom in. So it's on this like finger that's sticking out right here. So these positions are right here. So this should definitely be, well, there's Ukrainian positions here. So it may be grey now, but should definitely be maybe blue if there's actually a position and they didn't get taken out there. But we believe that that is moved into this position. I've seen Russian pages also showing this saying, well, the Ukrainians are out here. So maybe an advancement or a confirmation on where they are, but Kursk itself is getting squeezed down. That is all the maps I have for you today. So let's talk a little bit about some other stuff that's floating around. Now, manpower is likely the single most important factor in the war. If Ukraine's mobilization numbers continue to decrease and Russia can sustain its monthly recruitment efforts, including possibly with North Korean soldiers, the situation will continue to deteriorate unless Ukraine's foreign partners can provide greater support. And we do know, I believe, I agree, that manpower is the single most important factor in the war. That cannot be solved by Western partners. It can be helped by Western partners of weapons and ammo and training. But as far as men signing up to fight, that can only be solved by the men within Ukraine, or the men and women within Ukraine, or mobilization 18 to 25, or men who have moved outside into Europe or into Australia or into America coming back to fight. And of course, what that is going to need, there's going to need to be a willingness to fight. And I believe these guys who've moved out, Ukrainian government needs to show that there can be a realistic victory. Potentially then they will move back, or things are going to get actually easier for Russia if things go on. If Russia can sustain the monthly recruitment, which it looks like it can at this point, and Ukraine's mobilization numbers are continuing to decrease as the war goes on, it may actually get easier and easier for Russia, if that makes sense, like we have seen that increase in territory that they are making month to month. I had a conversation this morning with a very experienced guy who actually thinks winter will be worse than over the summer was. Reckons Russia may take actually more territory then, given some historical things. So this is Zelensky's speech, but I want to skip the first bit. We're going to talk about it and talk about the last bit because this has a lot to do with manpower. However, while this is happening, talking about weapons coming, victory plan, all of this, unfortunately, there are things going on here in the rear of Ukraine that make external enemies seem unnecessary. This is truly an internal enemy. What's happening with medical and social expert commissions and the audacity of certain individuals, particularly prosecutors, who use their connection to the MSEC to obtain false disability statuses. I expect swift and decisive action from law enforcement, especially the security services of Ukraine, the State Bureau of Investigation, the Prosecutor General's office. So what this is people that have got fake medical stuff to move out of the country. So you pay a doctor X amount of money, I've hurt my whatever, and move out. And a lot of these are being seen to as bullshit. And that is a huge problem because manpower, like we said, is the biggest problem that Ukraine is facing. And these guys have left or deserted and whatever. And there are more and more questions being asked of people. Well, if you can do X job, if you're a commercial airline pilot, how can you pass the physical examinations for this, but not guys who are still fighting in Ukraine who are double or single amputees who have gone back to fight on the front lines also. So I think we'll see more and more from Ukraine to try and fix this manpower shortage by getting guys back or attempting to get them back into Ukraine to sign up to fight. But again, I don't know, but there will be some hefty or heavy prosecution of those who have falsified those documents. Again, the biggest thing Ukraine needs to fix is corruption, because that helps people go, yep, okay, that's getting fixed. I'm going to have a better time on the front line. It can all flow into everything is connected in war. If people don't believe the government has their best interest at hand, they're not going to sign up. If people think that the rich are getting it easier than the poor, they may not sign up. So it's all of this, and it breeds into the manpower problems that we have. And the worse the situation gets on the front line, the less likely people are to sign up as well. So this is the thing. The worse it gets, the easier it gets for the other side. It is a huge problem at the moment. We spoke about Shaheed, and here is something to the drone. The drones given by Russia to Russia by Iran, they've become one of the main tools for Russian terror against Ukraine. And unfortunately, the Russians and Iranians continue to improve them. We've always told our partners there is necessary to be more decisive in countering such criminal alliances. So Ukraine Zelensky is telling the West, going, you need to be decisive in countering these criminal alliances, not just Russia, not just Iran, but the alliances that these countries are building. Also speaks about how many they are using. There needs to be more pressure on Russia's ability to already produce these weapons. We need the capability we need the capability to destroy not only the storage bases for the Shaheeds, but also the entire infrastructure for their production and logistics. The problem is these are a very simple system. It's not like making an iPhone. The systems inside of these, the microelectronics, the resistors, the chips, Russia can produce, China can produce. It's not some tiny nanometer thing that can be produced. Yes, there is Western stuff pop up in some of these, but they can backfill that. And to actually cut off that supply is going to be impossible through intermediaries regardless. But the capability to destroy storage bases, blah, 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 production logistics, this is again alluding to we need that long range capability. Again, though, those HIMARS Storm Shadows are going to be nowhere near how far away the logistics for these are. Unfortunately, terrorists know how to take advantage of the time that the free world's indecision gives them. So again, pointing at the West and going, your indecision has given them time to do this. One thing we have seen, there's a hell of a lot more from Ukraine of external sort of name and shaming than we are seeing internally. Yes, there is some internal down here, which I was very surprised to see about people being prosecuted, but all of it is because of your indecision. This is what has occurred. Similarly, there is now a new threat, the criminal alliance between Russia and North Korea. I'm grateful for leaders and representatives of nations who are not turning a blind eye and are speaking openly about the cooperation aimed at increasing the scale of the war. About the weapons being supplied from North Korea to Russia, about what Russia may give Pyongyang in return for this assistance. This is something that I've talked about a lot. This is what I believe that the Western states are saying when we're fearful of escalation is not what Russia will do in Ukraine. I don't think it has anything to do with that. I think it's what Russia may be prepared to give Pyongyang or Iran, because, of course, those countries are after some of the high tech that Russia's after, as well as China. There is specific areas at which China is vastly ahead of Russia in, but other areas where Russia is ahead of China. And I've said multiple times, in submarine tech, anti-submarine warfare, and highly efficient jet engines. China is after that. Maybe there can be some, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Unfortunately, the instability and threats could grow significantly once North Korea starts learning the peculiarities of modern warfare, like I read to you yesterday. Under the galvanizing pressures of war, don't underestimate how your enemy can adapt. Now we have clear evidence that people are being supplied from Russia to Russia from North Korea, those soldiers. These are not just workers for industry, but also military personnel. We expect a normal, honest, and strong reaction from our partners to this. In fact, this is another state joining the war against Ukraine. We have not seen them yet join the war. We know South Korea and Ukrainian intelligence is saying that they may come into the fold. Again, we will see. I think likely if these troops are used in Kursk, I think some of the messaging will fall flat because the West may go, well, it is participating in the war as a whole, but it's within Russia's territory. There's a deal signed between Russia and North Korea to defend there. That is going to get real messy, really bloody quick. So wait and see. And the US, they're really tiptoeing, going, well, we're sort of confirming if or not or this or that. And of course, a lot of bloggers are saying that the guys are already deserting and being killed or whatever, providing heaps of evidence. There must be a response. We must counter this. We cannot let evil grow. If the world remains silent now, if we end up facing North Korean soldiers on the front lines as regularly as we are defending against Shaheeds, it will benefit no one in the world and will only prolong this war. So there must be a response, he is saying. So what Zelensky will be really wanting here, and what other bloggers are saying, well, if a third party of North Korea is entering the war, why can't a fourth or fifth party of Poland or Germany or France or America or Australia join the war on our side? And I agree with that as on the surface level. But we know that these Western states are not going to do that, or otherwise they would have 2.5 years ago. That's why I don't think this is going to change much, but we're going to see a lot of a lot of messaging pointed towards, well, the reaction should be this. Yes, but of course, the nuance that it gets very complex very quickly and is not just as simple as a third enters, fourth enters, because then we cross that event horizon. Next thing, we have the 56th country entering, one you've never heard of, and oh, well, we're going downhill. This week, we secured support from our partners in terms of the victory plan. Thank you to France, Lithuania, and Nordic partners and other allies in the European Union. We've also received very positive signals from the United States. We're hearing changes in rhetoric. So rhetoric towards the victory plan, how it looks, and the war as a whole. So there are some countries that are supporting the victory plan, France primarily being the main one. But again, without the US, without Germany, it will absolutely fall flat without consensus amongst the whole thing. So I guess on the victory stuff, just wait out. I have this as well here the American president took advantage of a brief visit in Germany to discuss Olaf Scholz, Macron, and Steinmeier, the hot topics at the moment in Ukraine, the victory plan Zelensky presented to try and reverse the balance of power with Russia and, of course, bring Russia to the table. And then Russia will open up those negotiations from a position of Ukrainian strength and Russia pulling back. So, yeah. However, while Russian troops advance in the east of the country, the demands made by Kyiv to Western allies give rise to a strong divergence between Washington, Paris, London, and Berlin. A diplomat has said it is an ambitious plan that raises complex questions on which there is no spontaneous convergence of views. So, between the big players here, there is no real, we're all on board with this. Zelensky of the invitation of his country to join NATO in his eyes, such a rapprochement constitutes the best possible security guarantees for Ukraine or Kyiv. In order to dissuade Russia from resuming the war when the guns have fallen silent, this invitation could ideally, according to the Ukrainian head of state, take place before December at the end of Joe Biden's term. But Ukrainian integration into the NATO alliance would become a reality at best after the end of the war. But this is the problem. It may be an invitation, but won't enter till after the war. But what he's hoping for is it will dissuade Russia from continuing or stopping and restarting the war, which is a real problem. But there's nothing here to dissuade Russia from just continuing as is, especially if this doesn't go through. And without the US and Germany, without the US, forget everyone else. The UK is not the power that it used to be. Neither is France. They historically unbelievable powers, but they have been really reducing in their influence and power around the world. So the big players really here is US and Germany. So far, the US and Germany have blocked the prospect of NATO enlargement to Ukraine, while France and the UK are more in favour. However, according to some sources, the Americans would no longer have any objections in principle to a simple invitation. Potentially. If Kamala is elected, we could imagine that Biden could move in this direction during the transition period. If it is Trump, the reasoning no longer applies, and the slightest initiative from Biden risks making things worse. This is from a European diplomatic source. Again, wait and see. I don't think the US is going to really shift on this too quickly. A move by the US could nevertheless lead to a change in the German position. So if the US goes, I reckon Germany would go with them, but at this point in time, over the last years, we have seen this shot down. Why at this point would that rhetoric change? And I believe that Ukraine know that it's not going to go through as a way to shift some of that maybe blame or potential dissent internally across to, well, it was the US. Otherwise, we would have had more. Now let's speak. Oh God, we're getting long in this. Even Ukraine's fiercest soldiers want the war to stop. Drone Commander admits military goals have changed, but insists the West must stay strong in its support of Kyiv. Any Western politician suffering from Ukraine fatigue could learn a lot from Lieutenant Yulia Mikhayenko. I know that I'm tired. I'm really tired. I know that my people are also tired. A lot of them I took from assault units. So they are like extremely tired. We are also sort of ready for negotiations, but we're just asking that the West insists on our interests. So negotiation, but we still need our interests at hand. So first break in nearly a year rest interval coincides with a new drive to end the war. Of course, this that we just spoke about with Germany, France, England, and the US. Their summit comes, Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, lobbied them to support a 5-point victory plan that he argues could bring peace next year. First 3 points, NATO membership, strengthening of the Ukrainian military, and this is trying to persuade Russia to stop the invasion and deterring it from doing it again. Which at this point, I just don't see how this is the plan without mass mobilization and arming and training those guys too, which takes a long time. The fourth point is about rebuilding the Ukrainian economy, which includes a sales pitch around access to Ukraine's natural resources, trillions of dollars worth. There are 3 annexes that have not been made public, but from what we know, the plan is obviously meant to address perceived Western and especially American fatigue with the war by signposting a way out of it. But it depends on massive commitments from the West, and the West does not seem impressed. I haven't seen that many people impressed with this as a way out of the war. This victory plan is not a way out of the war. It's putting Ukraine potentially in maybe a stronger position, but it's going to take a long time. You can't just deliver these systems without mass mobilization, but it's also as a way to draw in the West also with the point number, which one is it? 0.5 appeals to NATO. Where's the point that it will then have non-nuclear deterrence package, right up here, that will come into place. That is bringing NATO in directly. President Biden has already vetoed against long-range strike capabilities, essential to Zelensky's defence concept, although people have said this will not make that much of a change at the time anyway. There's been no serious progress on NATO membership despite support from Britain and Poland. Harris has made no sign that she'll deviate from Biden's policy of providing enough kit to keep Ukraine in the fight, but not enough to antagonise Russia into escalating the conflict. This is what I talk about. This is why I am not sure that Putin wants Trump in power. Trump is predictable. This is why I'm not sure that Putin wants Trump in power. Harris is predictable. Things will continue, most likely, on the same trajectory. Trump is unpredictable. It may stop or it may go balls to wall. You do not know. This continues. Republican rival Trump has made no secret of his wish to end the war, cutting a deal with Russian President Vladimir Putin that suspends US aid to the Ukrainians. Again, we don't know. It could go one way or the other. Trump is very unpredictable. Zelensky met all 3, Harris, Biden, Trump, and no one has embraced the victory plan wholeheartedly. Britain and former Commander-in-Chief of its armed forces, Zaluzny, of course, ambassador there and chief, this week hinted that Ukraine could accept a peace deal that will give up some of its land to Russia. Asked in London on Thursday if he could imagine a victory without getting all the lost territory back, he said, "I didn't mention territories. I mentioned safety, security, and the feeling of being in one's own home." So we have seen that rhetoric change massively. This is a subtle but profound shift in rhetoric, which previously insisted on no peace until all of Ukraine was reclaimed. But as you'll see, I think this may raise more problems. The lieutenant here remarks that early chances to win at the end of the war were squandered. I knew that the war wouldn't end in a few weeks and we wouldn't be in Crimea in a few months, as our governments used to say, and all the propagandist bloggers as well. I completely understand that, but I was hoping for much more help from the Western world. So the soldiers at the front, they know how it is really going. I was hoping that the F-16s at the end of 22, I was hoping to get Patriots and Abrams by the end of 22, although they did come in 23 when we really needed them. When we had a really motivated army, we had a lot of warriors who were ready to fight. Like I said yesterday, 22, 23 was the highest morale, highest motivation that the Ukrainian forces will likely ever have. That was the time. And they didn't have enough guys or enough equipment to make full use of that. But again, this goes hand in hand because you can only have, just having equipment is useless if you don't have guys to do it. And we have seen that there hasn't been that much real push internally to mass mobilisation. What many people say, and you'll see this soon when I have a thing, day one should have been we're mobilising 1 million people. That's what more and more people are starting to look back on and go, that was the problem. Should have been mobilised everyone that we can at that point, regardless. If only she amused the West had sent enough help on time if the massive 23 offensive had been put into Kursk instead of the heavily fortified Russian lines in occupied Zapoblast, which we know then failed, and like Zaluzny said, no significant advantage, or whatever he said, but it did fail. Now we are given a small amount of those weapons, and we're expected to use them in the same as in 2022, but unfortunately we won't, because a lot of warriors are dead, missing, and injured. Our motivation, let's be honest, is much lower than even 1 year ago. So yeah, we had a great chance at the end up to 2023, but if we had gotten everything that we asked for, now it's almost impossible. We won't recover the strength which we had in 22 for the last 10 years. So things are greatly shifting. In short, victory, which once seemed so close, has slipped below the horizon. Again, we've spoken about this. That was chances, but at this point, it seems further away than it did years ago. Her husband, a fellow soldier, was killed at the front in 2017. Her father, who also fought against the first Russian invasion, later killed himself in protest at the perceived betrayal of his son-in-law, and other comrades sacrificed by Mr. Zelensky's early attempts to find a compromise with Russia to end the conflict. So sadly here, her family has had massive sacrifice in this war, but this is the interesting part. Her father, who took his own life here, had what he sees as betrayal. This is something that I think is going to be a big problem if Zelensky turns around and goes, we are negotiating, and the rhetoric has been for years, 1991 border, your family, your friends, your comrades have sacrificed for this promise, and it's not that. I don't know if there can just be a gaslighting into, no, it's all because of the West. I don't think that's going to work. People are not dumb. People are going to look at government corruption problems, command issues. They're also going to look at the amount of people that left, some illegally, out of Ukraine also. A recent report by the Chatham House identified 3 possible outcomes in the absence of a Ukrainian victory. A long, additional war that tests each side to its limit. A frozen conflict that allows either side to rebuild its forces, or all-out Ukrainian defeat with Russia dictating terms of surrender, including a change of government. So they're the 3 possibilities without Ukraine winning. I actually would put a 4th in here, that the war shifts into a third country as a proxy. So it falls silent, unsure where that border then sits. But then we have a war. So you could say that we've had wars with the Soviet Union back in the day after World War II, of course, where they were on our side, so to say. People forget about that. They defeated Germany. But you could say that the Cold War was cold between the US and the Soviets. But there was absolute fighting via proxy in Vietnam or Afghanistan. So there was war there, and I think this could occur something like this, that we will have further fights with Russia, but it could be used through intermediaries or in a third country by proxy potentially as well. Like you could say that the West is at war, or Israel is at war with Iran, but through some proxy. But it'll be interesting to see if that's where this war goes to. We're thinking how we can support Zelensky in getting what he needs to hold Pokrovsk and the land that's there in Kursk. So what can we give to actually keep Pokrovsk and the land currently, both which seem like still short-term goals? We're expecting Ukraine to be able to hold on to where it is over the next period. But what we see as we look much further ahead, strains starting to grow on Russia in 25 and 26. But remember, apparently the strain was going to grow on Russia in 23, 24. But again, we haven't really seen that yet. But can Ukraine last that long on the current trajectory? So we will see. But not only can Ukraine last that long, but can the Western support keep that as well? Elsewhere, Russia has the initiative. Western officials reported fairly consistent, slow tactical losses by Ukraine across the front line, including in the part of Kursk that Mr. Zelensky wants to use as leverage for his victory plan. Some commentators, reaching the 20th century analogies, argue a frozen conflict could be the least imperfect solution. The Cold War division of Germany, the ceasefire in Cyprus, the 70-year ceasefire along the DMZ between North and South Korea, all more or less held. So could this be where it ends? That said, if that happens, will Ukraine be able to join something like NATO? Which I don't think they will have any want to end the war if that isn't possible. We will see the implications clear. Some in occupied territories already see little chance of anything else. I feel neutral about the situation with Russia. I would accept being part of Russia if it meant the fighting would end. I don't care what flag I live under. My home is my home either way. A 20-year-old resident of Mariupol told The Telegraph. But all these ideas require Russia to seek a settlement. This is what we're spoken about. These ideas, they require Russia to seek a settlement. At this point in time, why would Russia seek a settlement? And with the rhetoric that Ukraine has had from the past 3 years about we will go to the 91 border, nothing short than this, blah, 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 and so cement stronghold on that. Like I've said a million times, if I was a Russian official or commander, if then I saw a change in this rhetoric, I would take that as things must be worse than we are seeing. let's continue the war, because if you've been so strong, this is the only way out. Next thing, you're willing to negotiate somewhere way less than that. Okay, we must be about to reach the apex of victory. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but we will see. Maybe Russia just want the pain to end and try and rebuild their economy and their demographics as well, which have been hit. One Western official asked if there was any sign Putin was interested in talking to peace, and he said none whatsoever. Legends, I hope that you have a fantastic day. Look after yourselves, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.